Protect your energy like your life depends on it. I want you to picture something with me for a second. It's the end of an ordinary day. You didn't run anywhere. You didn't lift anything heavy. You didn't climb a single flight of stairs that mattered. And yet when you finally sit down at night, you feel like someone reached inside your chest and pulled the plug. Not tired in your legs. Tired somewhere you can't point to. Tired in a place that 8 hours of sleep doesn't seem to reach anymore. That feeling has a name. Almost nobody teaches you to protect it, while there's still something left to protect. We spend our whole lives learning how to manage money. Budgets, savings, investments, debt. Entire industries exist to teach you how to guard your bank account. But nobody sits you down and teaches you how to guard your energy. And energy is the one currency that actually purchases everything else. Money can't buy you the will to use it. Time can't buy you the focus to fill it. A perfect opportunity can knock on your door. And if you're empty, you won't even have the strength to open it. Here's what most people don't understand about energy. It doesn't disappear because you did too much. It disappears because you gave it to too many things that were never worth the withdrawal. Think about your energy the way you'd think about a reservoir. It fills slowly, drop by drop, through rest, through purpose, through the right people, through a mind that isn't constantly at war with itself. And it drains fast, sometimes in seconds, through one bitter conversation, 1 hour of comparing your life to a stranger's highlight reel, one grudge you've been carrying since a year you can barely remember. A reservoir doesn't care how the water left. It only knows what's left inside it. And most people are operating their entire lives from the bottom third of a tank they never learned to refill. Let me tell you about a young man who spent his early 20s working retail, folding shirts, stocking shelves, watching the clock, going nowhere in particular. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't unintelligent. He was simply spending his energy on a life that was slowly drifting, instead of a life that was being built. Then one evening in 1955, almost by accident, he sat in a room and listened to a businessman give a talk that changed the direction of everything. Something in him recognized what he'd been missing. Not motivation, direction for where his energy should go. Within a short time, he left the stockroom behind and stepped into work that demanded far more of him and gave far more back. Years later, he'd become one of the most quoted voices in personal development, a man named Jim Rohn. And one of the truths he kept repeating for the rest of his life was this: every day, stand guard at the door of your mind. Read that again. Not stand guard at the door of your house. Not stand guard at the door of your bank account. The door of your mind. Because that's where the real robbery happens. Nobody breaks into your future by force. They walk in through an open door you forgot to close. Think about the last time you scrolled through a feed full of strangers you don't even like, and somehow walked away feeling worse about a life you were perfectly fine with an hour earlier. Nobody held you down and did that to you. You opened the door yourself. Think about the last time you replayed an argument in your head for the 10th time. Not to solve it, just to relive it. That conversation ended hours ago. You're the one who kept paying rent on it. Think about the people who only call when they need something, who leave every interaction with more than they arrived with, while you leave with less. None of that is an accident. It's a leak. And most people never audit where their energy is actually going. They just wonder, at the end of every day, why they feel like they've been emptied by a life that on paper looks completely fine. Here's what most people don't understand about protecting your energy. It has almost nothing to do with being selfish, and almost everything to do with being honest. Honest about who deserves access to you. Honest about what deserves your attention. Honest about which thoughts you're allowed to keep replaying, and which ones you need to stop feeding. There's a reason Jim Rohn used to say that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. He wasn't talking about ambition rubbing off on you like some kind of magic. He was talking about energy. Spend your time around people who complain for sport, and complaining will start to feel normal in your own mouth. Spend your time around people who are quietly building something, and building will start to feel normal in yours. Energy is contagious in both directions, and most people catch the wrong version simply because they never chose their exposure on purpose. They let proximity decide it for them. Think about this for a moment. Would you hand a stranger your bank card and let them spend whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, with no limit? Of course not. Yet most people hand their attention to anyone who asks for it. A notification asks, they give it. A negative coworker asks, they give it. An old resentment asks, they give it, again for the 1000th time. Nobody would run their finances that way. Yet almost everyone runs their energy that way, wide open, no limit, No statement at the end of the month showing where it all went. Here's what most people don't understand about boundaries. A boundary isn't a wall you build to keep people out. It's a gate you build so you get to decide who's allowed to draw from you and when. Without a gate, you're not generous. You're just unprotected. And there's a cost to being unprotected that nobody warns you about, because by the time you feel it, you've already spent years paying it. I want you to think about someone you've known who says yes to everyone, who shows up for every favor, who absorbs every complaint from every person in their life, and somehow never has anything left over for their own dream. People call that person kind. Sometimes it isn't kindness. Sometimes it's a person who never learned that saying yes to everyone else is the same as saying no to themselves. One small withdrawal at a time, until the account that was supposed to fund their own life is sitting empty. Let me tell you something about forgiveness that most people get backwards. They think forgiveness is a gift you give to someone who hurt you. Sometimes it isn't about them at all. Sometimes it's the only way to stop paying interest on a debt that keeps compounding in your own head. Every grudge you carry cost you energy today, not just the day it happened. You're not punishing the person who wronged you by staying angry. You're taxing your own future to fund a grievance that already ended. Put it down. Not because they earned your peace, because your future needs the energy more than your past needs the argument. Here's what most people don't understand about the body. Jim Rohn once said, "Take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live." Most people treat that as a health tip. It's actually an energy tip. You cannot run a demanding life on a starved, sleepless, sedentary body and expect your mind to somehow perform at a level your body never agreed to support. The body is the infrastructure. Everything else, focus, patience, resilience, creativity, is built on top of it. Neglect the foundation long enough, and it doesn't matter how strong your ambition is, the whole structure starts to lean. Think about a phone at 1% battery. It still technically works. You can still open it, still see the screen light up. But watch what happens. It won't run anything demanding. It closes the apps in the background first, the ones it decides aren't essential. It dims itself. It protects only the bare minimum. That's what a depleted person looks like too. Still functioning, still showing up, but quietly shutting down everything that isn't strictly required to get through the day. Your dreams, your patience, your creativity. Those are the first apps to close when your energy runs low, because your mind decides, correctly, that survival comes before ambition. That's why the people who accomplish the most rarely look like they're running at 100 miles an hour every single day. Look closer, and you'll usually find someone who protects their mornings, protects their sleep, protects their inputs, protects who gets close enough to affect their mood. Not because they're fragile, because they understand that ambition without energy is just a wish with good intentions. Here's what most people don't understand about purpose. Not all effort drains you the same way. There's effort that empties you, and effort that fills you back up while you're spending it. Sitting in a meeting that has nothing to do with your future can leave you exhausted after 30 minutes. Working late on something that actually matters to you can leave you energized after 3 hours. Same word, effort. Two completely different outcomes. That's why protecting your energy isn't about doing less. It's about redirecting what you have toward work that gives some of it back. Think about a woman who spent years in a job that paid the bills and drained her completely, until she finally admitted that the exhaustion wasn't from working too hard. It was from working on the wrong thing for too long. The moment she redirected even a small piece of her day towards something she actually cared about, people around her noticed a change they couldn't quite explain. She hadn't slept more. She hadn't done less. She'd simply stopped bleeding energy into something that never gave any back. Here's what most people don't understand about energy debt. You can borrow against tomorrow the same way you can borrow against a paycheck that hasn't arrived yet. Push through on 4 hours of sleep because there's too much to do, and you'll get through the day. But you didn't find that energy. You borrowed it, and the bill always comes due, usually a day or two later, in the form of a mind that can't focus, and a mood that snaps at people who didn't deserve it. Skip the recovery your body actually needed, and call it discipline. And eventually your body stops asking politely, and starts demanding, through exhaustion, through illness, through a version of you that can't show up for anything at all. Debt feels free the moment you take it. It never stays free. Energy works exactly the same way, and the interest rate is brutal. Think about a man who ran his own business and wore his exhaustion like a badge, up before sunrise, answering messages past midnight, telling anyone who'd listen that rest was for people who didn't want it badly enough. For a while it looked like it was working. Then the mistakes started. Small ones first. A missed deadline. A short temper with a client who didn't deserve it. Then bigger ones. Decisions made by a mind too depleted to see 2 steps ahead. He hadn't run out of ambition. He'd run out of the one resource that ambition actually depends on, and no amount of wanting it more could refill a tank he refused to stop draining. Here's what most people don't understand about a cluttered mind. Every unfinished decision, sitting in the back of your head, is quietly withdrawing from you all day long, even while you're doing something else. The email you haven't answered. The conversation you've been avoiding. The choice you keep putting off. None of it announces itself the way a deadline does, but all of it hums in the background like a tab you forgot to close. And a mind with 40 tabs open doesn't have room left to actually think. That's why the people who seem calm under pressure aren't necessarily carrying less. They've simply closed more tabs. They finished the conversation instead of postponing it. They made the decision instead of circling it for the 5th day in a row. A closed loop stops costing you energy. An open one costs you energy forever, whether you're looking at it or not. Here's what most people don't understand about comparison. It might be the single most expensive habit a human being can develop, because it charges you energy for absolutely nothing in return. You don't gain anything by watching someone else's life and measuring your unfinished chapter against their highlight reel. You just hand over your piece for free and call it curiosity. The most protected people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who never notice what others have. They're the ones who noticed, felt the pull for a second, and consciously decided not to pay that toll. Think about this for a moment. If your energy today were the only energy you'd ever get for the rest of your life, no refills, no recovery, would you still be spending it the way you are right now, on the argument you keep replaying, on the person who only calls when they need something, on the feed that leaves you worse than it found you, on the grudge from 3 years ago that the other person probably doesn't even remember? If that were truly all you had left, you'd start guarding it like your life depended on it. Here's the part most people never fully accept. It already does. Every hour you protect is an hour you get to spend on purpose instead of on defense. Every relationship you filter is one less leak in a tank you're going to need later. Every night you actually rest is a deposit toward a version of you strong enough to handle whatever tomorrow asks for. None of this happens with one dramatic decision. It happens the way most real change happens, quietly, one small refusal at a time. Refusing to hand your morning to your phone before you've even decided what kind of day you want to have. Refusing to let someone else's bad mood become your bad mood. Refusing to replay a conversation that ended hours ago. Refusing to compare a life you're still building to someone else's finished chapter. Stand guard at the door of your mind, the way Jim Rohn said it decades ago. Because that door is still exactly where the leaks begin. Choose the 5 people carefully, because their energy will eventually become your energy, whether you notice it happening or not. Take care of the one body you get to live in, because it's the machine everything else runs on. Let go of what you're only holding on to out of habit, because a grudge is just energy paying rent on a room you should have closed years ago. You don't need more hours in your day. You need fewer leaks in the hours you already have. You don't need a bigger dream. You need enough energy left at the end of the day to actually chase the one you've already got. Protect your mornings. Protect your peace. Protect the people you let close enough to affect your mood. Protect your body like it's the only house you'll ever own, because it is. Protect your attention like it's the most valuable thing you have left to spend, because it is. Here's what most people don't understand about recovery. It isn't the opposite of ambition. It's the maintenance ambition requires to keep functioning. Nobody looks at a car and calls an oil change lazy. Nobody looks at a phone charging overnight and calls it unproductive. Yet somehow, when a person rests, closes their laptop, turns off their notifications, sits quietly with nothing to prove, the world is quick to call it wasted time. It isn't wasted. It's the part of the process nobody applauds. The same way nobody applauds the hours a seed spends underground before anything visible appears. Rest isn't the reward you earn after the work. Rest is part of the work. Skip it long enough and you're not being more productive. You're just spending faster than you're earning. And eventually the account runs dry no matter how good your intentions were. Think about the person you know who reads before bed instead of scrolling, who takes a walk without headphones instead of filling every silence with noise, who spends 30 quiet minutes actually thinking instead of reacting to the next thing that demands a response. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. No output, no proof, no highlight to post. But that person is quietly making a deposit that shows up weeks later as clearer thinking, steadier moods, and decisions made from a full tank instead of an empty one. Nobody sees the deposit. Everyone eventually sees the result. Your future isn't only waiting on your ambition. It's waiting on whatever energy you have left after everything else has taken its share. So take the share back, guard the door, refill the reservoir, and start living like you finally understand what was true the whole time. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does.